So now we're going to calculate the number of room nights for each room type and for each day of arrival combination. Now, again, if your day of arrival appears as numbers rather than as the weekdays, you just simply change the format by going to custom format and selecting DDD to show the corresponding weekday, the first three letters of that corresponding weekday. So the function we're going to need here is similar to SUMIF, which you've seen earlier because we use it up here, right? SUMIF. Again, SUMIF only accepts one criteria, similar to COUNTIF. But in this case, we have two criteria because we need to sum the room nights for each room type and for each day of arrival. So we're going to use a similar function to SUMIF, except we have more than one criteria, so we need to use SUMIFS. Now, if you select SUMIFS, you'll see that the first argument is the range that you want to sum, which in our case is room nights. And then followed by the first pair of criteria range and criteria. And if you had more criteria, you can just type a comma and keep adding. So that's what we're going to need. So the first argument is the range that you want to add, and that will be room nights because we want to add the room nights. So we click over to our worksheet, okay, exercise 2 hotel data, and our room nights are here, H5 to H95, comma. And I'm going to I'm going to press F4 to quickly change this into an absolute reference. All right. And so that's the range that we want to sum. And now the first criteria we want to consider before we include it in the sum is the room type. So criteria range 1 is the room type. So I go here, select that first criteria range, comma, change this into an absolute reference. Now I'm using the F4 key. You just click here and press F4 once, it's going to become an absolute reference. And it also brings us back to our original location. And the value that we want to apply to this, the criteria that we want to apply to this range is that it must be equal to A35, right? And this formula is being entered in this worksheet, so we don't need this reference. It will make our formula shorter. Okay, now the second criteria range is going to be the day of arrival. Okay, so that criteria range is in EX2 hotel data. So I click over to that worksheet, and arrival day is it's K5 to K95. There you go, comma. And again, I can put F4, press F4 on K5, press F4 on K95, and that will put the dollar signs there and make it absolute. And now I will apply my criteria, which is that it should be equal to Sunday, okay, which is over here. Now, once again, the underlying value is actually 1, not SUN. It just appears as SUN because we formatted it as DDD, which is the first three letters of the weekday. Okay, so we put the closing parenthesis and press enter, and you will see that, you know, there were no room nights because, as you can see up here, there were no arrivals. So it matches what you see up here, right? And so before we copy this formula to the other locations, we just need to make sure that our references are correct. So definitely the range that you want to sum and our criteria ranges, they must be absolute references. But how about the criteria values? Okay, so A35, so this would be the value of the criteria for the room type. Now, we know that it's always going to be in column A, no matter where we copy this formula to. So we're going to put a dollar sign here. But the line number 35, it's going to adjust to 36, 37, 38, 39, and so on, because we are going to copy this formula, to all these other rows later on. So we do want 35 to adjust, so we do not put a dollar sign there. Now for B34, this refers to the criteria value for the weekday. And it's always going to be on row 34, but the column could adjust because later on when we copy it, it could be C34, D34, E34, and so on. So we just want to make sure that the line number does not adjust, but the column can adjust. So we do not put a dollar sign in front of B. And now we should be ready to copy it. So I'm going to copy it downwards. Okay, so you can see the room nights there now, and I'm just going to copy this sideways. All right. So now we have our room nights by room type and day of arrival. And I'm just going to quickly add a sum here. Okay, so now we've got all our total room nights by day of arrival. So again, just to review, we use this function called SUMIFS with two criteria ranges.